he is shocking everyone as Easton Cowan won the MVP. He won so many accolades this season, and this is a guy that could play a very, very big role for the Toronto Maple Leafs going forward and into the future. So I'm going to break down what his impact has been this past season, as well as what his impact is going to be going forward, as he is set to be a very prominent figure in the Toronto Maple Leafs team and the Toronto Maple Leafs fan base going forward. So before we get into that, though, quick reminder, hit the subscribe button. If you're a part of the 80 or so percent who are not subscribed, make sure to hit that button. It would mean the world to Darius and myself. Darius, Easton Cowan is a very, very interesting player. He's a great player. At the time of being drafted, there were some question marks about what his impact could be for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Players were saying, reporters were saying, people were saying he got picked too early. And boy, were they all wrong. What a season for Easton Cowan. And this is a guy that is going to play a huge role for the Toronto Maple Leafs going forward. And let's just dive right into it. He is an MVP, Darius. MVP Easton Cowan. He spoke out a little bit on raising his level in his OHL season. He says, I love playing on the big stage. I love the cameras on you. Everybody's watching you. It really shows when the lights are on you how big you are. Do you have any thoughts on this guy? We've made a couple videos on him. He is absolutely crazy. You look at some of the advanced metrics for Easton Cowan, like this is a guy that is going to, I don't know about next season, but at the very least the season after is going to be a top, maybe even a first liner at some point in his career. And yeah, for being drafted late in the first round and being where he is now, absolutely shocking.
Yeah, the potential is huge, and I'm really excited for this player. But we'll talk about his potential making the NHL later in the video. But for right now, I mean, everything from his advanced metrics in the OHL this season to his regular stats to the fact that he says he loves playing under the bright lights in big moments. It's everything you want to hear as a Leafs fan, and he really delivered in most of those moments, except for the Memorial Cup final. Of course, London had a really, really bad game in that one, but still a great season nonetheless for the London Knights, and they went all the way. The only team to beat them at all throughout the entire playoffs was the Saginaw Spirit. So, I mean, they had a really good run there, and he was a big part of that, and he was the only reason that they climbed back in that Memorial Cup final game. He got a couple points there. So just an amazing season from Easton Cowan. A lot of people are really excited about him. Like you said, completely changed the narrative where he was drafted late in the first round. He was projected to be a third rounder. Everyone was completely confused when they drafted him. Wes Clark clearly saw something in him that nobody else did, and it's paying off big time. Obviously, OHL MVP. The amount of points this guy put up this season is ridiculous, and the amount of games, we'll get into that as well. Just an amazing season, and a lot of people are really excited to see him on the Leafs next year. I'm just not sure that's going to happen, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, maybe he'll play his 8 games like Fraser Minton did last season. At least we'll get a sneak peek of what he got. But going into a quote here, this is Easton Cowan via Mark Masters. Like you mentioned it, I want to touch on this again. He says he loves playing the big stage with the cameras on you, everyone watching you, and that's what it's like in Toronto Maple Leafs land. It's exactly like this, the big stage, the big lights, and all these things. And he is not wrong. He's not just saying that. He performed at the biggest, or at least one of the biggest stages for him at his up until now, his professional career at least. And he spoke out on staring down the opposing fans after goals. He said, "I just like the celly. I think it's kind of cool. You kind of stare down the fans and get the boys going." Like, he has the aura, I guess is the word, of a guy who's going to come up and absolutely dominate in the NHL. And you look at the season, OHL champ, OHL MVP, London Knights consecutive point streak record holder. Obviously, they flared out in the Memorial Cup. But like Leafs latest said, what a season for the reach of the draft, which I remember very clearly as soon as he was drafted. We even spoke about it earlier last season as he was playing and developing that that point streak that ended up being ridiculous, making history. It's a complete 180 from what it was when he got drafted, and to see that is very good. But even all that stuff aside, he is going to be a very impactful player for the Toronto Maple Leafs over the next couple of years, and hopefully helping them reach their goal of the Stanley Cup. Maybe not next year, but definitely the year after. And he's going to be paired alongside Matthew Nyes. Is going to be a very, very bright future for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
And he only got better as the season went. I mean, he was drafted. You look at his highlights and people were confused, right? Why would you draft this player in the first round? Obviously, because the Leafs had to, or he would have been drafted by the time they drafted next. But clearly they saw something in him. And then he came into training camp and everyone was like, whoa, this guy is pretty good. Young, right? Inexperienced, but he has something there. And then he only got better as the season went on. And by the time you're watching him in playoff games, you're like, this guy is dominant at this level already. And people are asking, like, is he going to make the NHL next year? Personally, I don't think he's ready yet, right? But I think because of the weird rule and agreement the CHL has with the NHL where guys his age have to come back to the CHL so they can keep some of their star power. You can't go to the AHL next year. You can't play pro unless it's at the NHL level. So he's probably going to play his 9 games. And I think it depends on the Leafs cap situation too, because if they need guys who make less than $1 million, he could squeeze in there just because they have to have somebody there on in the lineup, barring any injuries or anything like that, or LTIR space. But I could see him making the NHL next year just because of the Leafs cap space situation. He's definitely going to play the 8 or 9 games, and then maybe get sent back to London or something like that. Because at the end of the day, I think logically speaking, he's not ready yet. He could use 1 more year, but it's more of the problem where, it's the CHL and NHL's agreement. I don't think this guy has anything to learn by going back to junior. He should be in the AHL starting pro or at the NHL level next year.
Maybe we'll see him get up there for a little bit. We'll probably see him for his 9 games and then get sent down to the CHL. But if you missed out on his season, if you were living under a rock for a little bit there, 96 points in 54 regular season games, 34 points in his 18 playoff games. And you can look all the way down, all these accolades, made the All-Star team, got the MVP, got the playoff MVP, the J. Ross Robertson Cup champion. He hit every single goal and then surpassed it by 1,000,000 times what fans' expectations. I can almost guarantee you what front office's expectations were going into the season. Obviously, the Toronto Maple Leafs scouting department, their ownership, front office knew they had something in him, but I don't even think they could imagine in their wildest dreams it would have been this level of production. And again, it goes to show some great drafting by them. And again, season with the London Knights was, by all accounts, like I just mentioned, a success, but it came to an end in heartbreaking fashion. But we can still take the positive out of it. Obviously, it would have been good to win the Memorial Cup, but I am fired up to see what he does next season. Again, the CHL agreement thing is weird because he's probably going to play his 9 games, sit down the CHL. He'll probably dominate there for as long as he can, and then I think 2026, the season after next, is the one where it's really going to be the year of Easton Cowan. And you can see this article. It says, may as well have been the last time we see Cowan in junior, as the player doesn't have much left to prove with the Knights, despite missing out on Memorial Cup. Earlier in the day, he was named to the All-Star squad. So just so many things. And Darius, it's exciting, though. It is exciting. There hasn't been too many super exciting Leafs prospects as of late, but Easton Cowan is definitely one of them. You have Matthew Nyes, who at this point isn't really a prospect. He played a whole season. And then Fraser Minton. There's a lot of guys at Easy that hopefully are going to develop, but Cowan took the Leafs prospect world by storm, I would say.
Yeah, and he plays for the London Knights, so it's the center of the attention too because it's so close to Toronto and the OHL and all that. But yeah, great season. Correct me if I'm wrong too, but I'm pretty sure he was the first player to win the season MVP in the OHL and playoff MVP since Connor McDavid. So pretty good company there, and he had a great season. This is something for Leaf fans to look forward to. He loves playing in the big moments. He delivers in the big moments. Of course, his team couldn't get it done in the final game, but he himself comes up in those moments. And I know it's at the junior level, so I'm excited to see what he has at the pro level. But logically speaking, I'm not sure he plays with the Leafs next season, but we'll have to see how their cap situation plays out and how he plays, honestly, because maybe he is ready, at least for the regular season.
Yeah, and very interesting to see. One thing I'll wrap you guys up with is a quote from David Alter. I'll let you pause and read it if you want, but it goes into depth about what his potential future could be, how obviously his season went, and how it could be the last time that he himself plays in junior. But overall, a very, very good year for Easton Cowan and a very exciting time to be, I guess, a fan of the prospects for the Leafs with Easton Cowan, and even Matthew Nyes dominating in the playoffs was great to see as well. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're on the road to 11,000. Let us know down below if you want to see Easton Cowan start with the Toronto Maple Leafs next season and stay past his 9 games. We'll see you tomorrow.